Hey there, my name is Roxane Webster
Hey everyone, and I'm Keith Alba, and we're the owners and partners at My Home Team with Keller Williams Advantage.
with another edition of The
The
Honest
Honest
Hour.
Hour. That's right. This is our no spin zone, except for Roxanne's one chair spin that she gets to do at the beginning of every one of these. But we're talking about everything kind of touches real estate adjacent stuff in the Denver metro, Colorado real estate market, and kind of what we're seeing and our thoughts on stuff. So
Please hit the subscribe button and the notification button and like this video if you like the content and share it to everybody you know and their family.
that's it. Please help us out. We think we've got very great content, and it's a shame that it's not being shared out there with
That's
all
right.
the residents of Colorado.
That's right. The world. There's still room on Mount Rushmore.
Well, that's right. Yeah, why stop there, right? They got plenty of people coming from out of state into this state. They deserve to have the same knowledge and information. So, what are we talking about today?
You know, Keith, for years I've had people saying, "Oh, I don't want to live in an area with an HOA," which is problematic in Colorado because HOAs are present with almost all condos and townhomes, and many, I would say the majority of residential neighborhoods, especially newer.
Especially newer stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. The newer stuff is out there. And initially they're designed to try and protect property values. And
that's
and
right.
there is certain value, I think, associated with that piece, right? Nobody wants to roll in and have the empty refrigerator that's 10 years old out in the front yard, and a car up on the cinder blocks, and those sorts of things. The grass that it looks like a jungle as you're trying to get through the front door.
The
Uh,
baby diarrhea colored paint job, you know.
Bubblegum pink, that sort of a stuff. So I do think there's value in certain communities and certain people that like to have those restrictions and protections that are put in place. Yet at the same time, sometimes those HOAs can go a little far. You've got your neighborhood Karen, as we'll call her, that is into everything out there, taking photos of the small violations or the nitpicky stuff along these lines. And homeowners can get to a point where they feel like they're getting attacked or picked on or picked out. And so there's got to be a little bit of a delicate balance. And the good HOAs are good with that, can handle it. But they do have the right to fine, to levy costs on homeowners. And in the event of non-payment of dues or fines, they can actually foreclose on properties.
They can put a lien on the property and then foreclose on it. That's right.
Yeah, it's
And I think
possible.
that there's a big distinction too that people need to understand around HOAs, right? The HOAs have the same powers if it's a residential neighborhood of single family homes. But when you've got townhomes or condos, right? Um, you only own if it's a condo, you own what's inside the walls. And if it's a townhome, you own what's inside the walls down into the ground beneath it, right? But all of the exterior, sometimes the roof, you own in common with all the other owners of that complex. And the maintenance of that, the what happens when there's a hailstorm, what happens when there's a sewer problem, that is managed and paid for by the HOA, which is funded by the fees that you pay every month. Right. So when you're looking at an HOA for a townhome or a condo, the the consequences of a crappy HOA, ill-maintained, where they're not managing their money or they're ill-managed or unresponsive, that is actually impacting something that you can't just throw a ladder up and crawl up and fix the gutters yourself. The HOA is responsible for it. You don't own them singularly. You own them in common with everybody else in there, and it's managed by the HOA. Versus if you're in a neighborhood of single family residents, right, and the HOA is crappy, okay, you might have some Karens and you might have not as many flowers as you want out front, but there's not a direct consequence that you can see to the quality of the domicile that you occupy because the HOA isn't managed well.
Yeah, I mean, other outside of special assessments for mismanagement of funds or something along those lines, yeah, dealing strictly with the domicile, I would agree with you. It's not as
Consequential.
impactful, not as consequential as that sort of a stuff. And I think what we're experiencing, what we're seeing out there now is these HOAs that have gone into this policing state and kind of these overlords over the owners of the piece. Whereas it should be more of, hey, we're policing in the extent of trying to prevent or protect property values and doing those sorts of things. But the HOAs should really be considering, what's in the best interest of their association, which is the individual members of those condos or townhouses or, single family houses. And in those townhouses and condos is where we're seeing a lot of these HOAs, in my opinion, violate that protection sort
That
of stuff.
trust.
They're doing things that are harming the sellers in terms of being able to resell the properties with losing things like FHA certifications or getting a deductible that is outside of the lending limits, which then makes it non-allowable and not allowed to be lended in. And so now all of a sudden what happens is you're shrinking this potential buyer pool down to smaller groups that maybe only can qualify for a conventional, or in certain extreme cases, reducing
Cash.
it and making it only cash buyers that are out there. And so
That's
now your
right.
pool is this big.
And if you've got 100 buyers sitting at the Starbucks today and 80 of them need a loan to buy the property and 50 of them need an FHA or VA loan to buy the property. If you just haven't filled out the paperwork in order to make it lendable with an FHA loan, you've just cut out half of the potential buyers for the property. And if you cut out half of the potential buyers for the property, the laws of supply and demand mean that property is potentially worth less money. And if you further restrict it so that 80% can't buy it because you have made the deductibles on your complex insurance such that somebody can't get any loan on it, now you're down to only 20% potential buyers, and the market is going to say, okay, with that little competition, that further drags down the value of that property. So the behavior of these HOAs, especially when it's something simple, like filling out the paperwork to make that it's paperwork and pay a few $1,000s to make sure that you can have a person buy that property using an FHA loan, having the largest number of people in competition for that property. If you're too lazy or too overworked or whatever it is to fill out that paperwork and pay a couple grand to do that, you are harming your owners.
It's gross mismanagement, in my
That's
opinion.
right.
These people are harming these potential sellers or people that want to sell by reduction of that pool based off of their actions or inactions,
That's
in
right.
certain cases like that. And unfortunately, recently they took away the licensure requirements for HOAs that, so there was some regulatory oversight. And now you're basically referring back to what is referred to as the Kiowa laws, the common interest associations that are out there, right? There's laws that say if you're an HOA, these are the things you have to do, but there's no enforcement really that's associated with that. There's no oversight on these HOAs. And so it's really kind of the Wild West out there. And we're seeing more and more cases of these HOAs that are taking actions or not taking actions in certain situations that are absolutely harming the sellers and putting them in a difficult situation where essentially they're either going to have to take a huge haircut on the potential value of their house in order to get it sold, or they're locked in, just having to stay there until they can get somebody competent on the HOA board to correct the actions that, or potentially turning it into a rental.
Well, and I think that there are a couple of takeaways from this, right? When I look at action steps. One, and you're going to hear a reoccurring theme, right? Through all of our honest hours for the past year is that we are in a high skill environment. If you are buying a property in Colorado where there's an HOA present, you need a highly skilled agent who can who explain to you the importance of the HOA, who draws your attention to the minutes, right? The minutes of the HOA meetings to see what bills they have, what type of maintenance, who advises you to actually take a look at the budgets of these things. See, are they spending money on maintenance? You know, who actually helps to research whether or not this thing, you can get an FHA, you can get your financing on it before actually getting into it. And guess what? You know, we see these things misadvertised. You know, agents are not doing a lot of that research themselves, the listing agents in some cases, and that's leading to some problems as well. So that's what my first takeaway. We're in a high skill environment. You need a highly skilled agent with a lot of experience. And the second one, if you're going to be buying into a property that is managed by an HOA in this regulatory environment, I think it behooves you to be involved in your community and just have it on your radar that if you're going to live in a common interest community, it is in your interest to be involved with, or at least have that HOA and what it's doing on your radar, right?
Yeah, and, ensuring that there's competent people that are on that board of directors,
That's
that
right.
somebody that understands that, yes, well, insurance premiums are going up and you can take a higher deductible in order to reduce those costs. There are downstream ramifications from that decision that can affect the owners and sellers in that property or that community that's out
That's
there.
right. That's right.
So if you're not going to be willing to, to take on that obligation and duty yourself, just vet the people that you get to vote for that are taking those positions and
Not a
make sure that,
popularity contest. This person
yeah,
has actual duties that impact the value of your property.
that impact everybody. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. All
Hit the
right.
subscribe button and the notification bell and hit like and share this with everybody. Thank you.
See you on the next one.